First of all, just thanks for spending some time with me this morning. The purpose of today is we finished our legislative session. June 8th was the last council meeting before we broke for the summer, and wanted to just kind of take a step back and look at what we've accomplished, what we've done over this time, and what we have looking forward. In addition, we completed the council legislative and policy agenda, which has been in the works for a long time, and there's been a lot of consultation, a lot of changes, and even as we were going to print, things happened that changed it, just because so many things are happening so fast. But I just wanted to take a look at what we've done recently and what we're going to do going forward, and then just kind of have, if you have any questions, just kind of an open session, anything that's on your mind related to Cleveland City Council, please feel free to ask. So, as you know, recently the council, we're focusing on, and we focused this last session on inclusion and being an open and welcoming city. As you know, recently we passed domestic partner benefits for same-sex couples. We did that, just recently. As Councilman Simperman is working very hard, and he's got the full support of the council president and leadership team in terms of making the plight of refugees a top priority and making the city of Cleveland a destination city for refugees. And we're working hard to make sure that there's resources in place for those people, so that they can come to Cleveland and thrive in Cleveland and really help rebuild certain neighborhoods in Cleveland. Another issue that we're focusing on is limited English proficiency and making City Hall more open and welcoming to everybody. Just little things that we probably should have done a long time ago. Our signage, our telephone prompts, our website being open in different languages. So that's something that we've really just kind of taken priority issues on. Another issue that we've really started engaging to the level that we should have been engaged in decades ago is some of the health and some of the health issues that are facing our city. The issue of infant mortality is something that should be shocking to everybody. The state of Ohio is either the 49th or 50th state in terms of infant mortality, depending on the survey. Cuyahoga County and the city of Cleveland, we are near the bottom both in the state and nationally. And we are, for the healthcare mecca that we are, infant mortality is something that we are close to third world status in terms of how we deal with that. And I think that that's something that isn't business as usual. This isn't something that this isn't an academic issue, or this isn't something that doesn't affect us. This is something that we all need to take very seriously and not just have it be, this is a clear your desk moment and focus on this issue because we know about it. And we know enough of how to make progress. And for that, we've really, the council's really made that a priority issue. During the budget reconciliation process, our budget amendment process during hearings, Councilman Simperman brought the issue to me, and he had brought the issue to me last year, that this is major, this is tragic, and this is in front of us. And we increased the budget last year by $200,000 for these services. He brought it back up again this year, and this year when it was brought to me, I went to the mayor and discussed and said, listen, Mayor, this is an issue that was brought up, and we need to put additional dollars to it. Well, through our conversations, the mayor kind of said, well, let's take a step back, and instead of funding more programs, let's look at how do we as a city leverage this resource, and how do we really make an impact and solve the problem. I mean, we could easily fund a program, and we've funded programs before, and it hasn't really gotten us anywhere. So how do we do that? And since that time, well, first of all, the money is in the budget. But since that time, we've really started, kind of convening groups, convening meetings. And the first issue that we have to focus on with this issue is that there's a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of good things, but they're not necessarily coordinated. They're not necessarily doing it in a coordinated fashion. And although there's a lot of people doing a lot of good things, and they're being funded, we're not necessarily making progress on the issue. If you look at how we rank, we're not making progress. So for us, the first issue that we need to do is we need to coordinate the services that are available. We need to determine best practices, and we need to devote the resources. We need to know what the number is, and we need to raise the resources. This isn't something that we can, because we know about this is not something that we can't, just accept that the budget can't meet the need. We have to find out what it is, and we have to solve the problem. And to that, I'll say that this is something that the council has been working on since that time, very, very closely with the mayor. This is something that we're all in on. This is not something that there's any obstinance or any competing agenda. This is all of our agenda, and this just happens to be something that we've taken in, and the council is really going to make a push on this. We hope to be announcing, pushing together a task force or really pushing the issue forward. The bottom line is we need to coordinate services. We need to develop best practices. We need to figure out what those best practices are to solve the problem, and we need to find the resources to do that. And of course, we are going to continue other health issues that we've worked on and continue to work on. Lead poisoning falls into the same category. The issue of opiate addiction is just painful. It is difficult, and it's one of those things that is just very hard to crack right now. But it's something that we're going to really continue to work tirelessly on. Looking back again and then looking forward, council is going to focus very heavily on our public infrastructure. We know the winter we had. We know the city that we live in, and we know that we've had problems with our roads, our streets, our bridges, and we know that it needs investment. This is something that is not that, when you look at the condition, you look at potholes, you look at the things that aggravate everybody, to me they're not problems, they're symptoms of the larger problem. The larger problem is that, we need to invest in these things continuously and systematically. As everybody here, I believe, knows, we put into place this past year a systematic approach to repaving every surface, every roadway in the city of Cleveland over a 20-year period. We've also been very fortunate to leverage NOACA dollars and issue $1 from the state of Ohio for our roadway infrastructure. That is something that is extremely important to us, and it's something that we are going to continue to push forward. In addition, I believe everybody in this room also knows that we recently approved $100 million in a bond issue for infrastructure, but not just our roadways. While the roadways is a big part of it, that's also for our vehicle fleet. Purchasing new snow plows, new police cars, new service vehicles, the things that our employees need to do their jobs correctly. And that our vehicle infrastructure, our vehicle fleet is something that we're going to be investing in heavily, so that when the snow falls, when they're needed, they'll be ready to go. So that is something to keep an eye on in the years coming forward, in terms of, by the time the first snowflake falls, those vehicles should be in place, and everybody should have that expectation of their city. The issue that's in front of us, that we are going to be spending a lot of the upcoming year, and pretty much, and when I talk of this, we have short-term goals. We're also looking at through the end of this term, through the end of this 4-year cycle that we're all on, because a lot of this is going to take at least that long. Coming up with the right policies and money to execute those items in the consent decree are going to be something the council is working on tirelessly. Those of you that cover public safety, you'll see that Councilman Zone has hearings scheduled throughout the summer. I thank God I'm not on that committee, because there's a lot of council members that are, they kind of look for a break. But it's something that we are going to be very involved in. There's some of the items are going to require charter change. Some of them are going to be training and policy issues, which nonetheless are going to require the council to authorize funds for. I've been asked where the money will come from. I do not know as I sit here today, but I know that we're all committed to executing all of the items that are in that consent decree. And I think that that is going to be challenging, and that's going to be something that we're on. But as part of the consent decree, you can't really talk about just this legal document and our legislative responsibilities in responding to it without at least acknowledging that and really expressing that council has been very involved and I believe kind of on the forefront of the community conversation regarding these very difficult issues. The Department of Justice report, as we know, came right on the heels of the Tamir Rice shooting, and then we had the Tanisha Anderson. Council immediately brought U.S. Attorney Dettelbach in to present to the council what it is. We did our listening tours. We really tried to listen to the community. And for those of you that were there, and most of you were there, and thank you for that, you saw, I mean, this was painful. People are in pain. People are angry, and it wasn't fun to just be there and just have people be the focal point of that abuse. But I think that we did provide a safe space. We did provide a place to really kind of start the conversation. And I think that some of that was used in the formation of the consent decree. And I think that with that kind of we started setting the tone for what happened following the Michael Grillo verdict. And that's I would say that the city did a very good job. When you looked at, looking back at things that we do together, look at how a lot of different organizations came together to land the the RNC conference. If you look here, the city was working closely with the governor, with the county, with surrounding communities, but also with the Greater Cleveland Partnership, also with the Cleveland Municipal School District, also with the Cleveland Building Construction Trades Union. I mean, everybody, we really did all come together to put that together, to come up with a message of, it's okay to demonstrate, it's okay to be angry, but we don't destroy things. This is if you do commit violence, you will be arrested. And I would say that we did a good job on that. I think our chief of police and the mayor need to be commended, as well as all of those partners that did that. And I say that just to say that that doesn't mean that we're done. There's two significant events that took place with the Tamir Rice shooting this past week and weekend, and I think that's going to be very challenging for the community. I think that's really going to test us. But I think that that's going to require that we as council and we as a city keep the pressure up, the pressure to listen, the pressure to outreach, and the pressure to understand what people are thinking, what they're feeling, because this is really an important event, and it's something that if you take away the affirmative defense is illegal, everything that people talk about, 'cause it's not a simple case, it's complicated, but the one thing that doesn't change is that there's a 12-year-old child and he was shot by the Cleveland police and he's dead, and that's the fundamental issue that we can't get away with. And when you look at all of the complicated circumstances, it's just very hard for people, and I understand that, and I think I think it's good that we're asking these questions, and I think it's good that we're asking, how did this happen? I think it's positive. I would not want to live in a city where we just went on business as usual after something like this happened. But this council and this city are acutely aware of that. It's something that we talk about we don't all see each other daily, but at least weekly. It's something that is always on the conversation. And then of course, we're all going to be working to put together a top-of-the-line convention when the RNC comes to town. In last summer session, we passed omnibus legislation that gave more authority than we normally give for something of this size, with our check being the Board of Control and monitoring that process. But that being said, I've looked at it recently and kind of refreshed where we are and where we're going, and I'm quite certain there's going to be other legislative actions that need to happen. Not so much to, because the authority is there, but just to tweak it a bit. I've already kind of heard a couple things that might not cover. But we are going to work closely with the administration and everybody's involved to put together to really make Cleveland shine for that event. I could talk for a long time, but one more item I just want to kind of put out there, and I'll just kind of refer you to this our document, our policy document, is workforce development, and that is something that we have made a lot of progress in over the past 6 months, really. And when I say progress, a lot of progress starts with agreements and planning and everything else. The historic agreement that the city came up with the building trades and with the Cleveland Municipal School District, with the new John Hay, to really take our students and get them into apprenticeship programs, to get them into the high-paid construction trades, was extremely positive. The Opportunity Corridor that is coming to Cleveland very soon, as we all know how important that project is. You know, the governor came to the city of Cleveland and talked about the value of inclusiveness and the value of diversity and the value of hiring our local workforce. And I think that those steps are very important now that we do have all these projects online. The danger, of course, is there are those in Columbus that believe that they can manage the city of Cleveland better than we can. And everybody's aware that House Bill 180, Senate Bill 152, they want to take away our local hiring preferences. And to me, that's pretty shocking, because we've got this one. We worked this out with the business community. The Greater Cleveland Partnership has taken a stand against these bills. They have formed a diversity and inclusion committee. They have the business community has been at the forefront of local hiring, local inclusion, and they've been doing it hand in hand with the building trades and with the city and with the Cleveland Municipal School District. So I don't know, I'm trying to plan in the future in terms of how we're going to develop this, and I don't know exactly how to do that with these two things hanging over, this House Bill 180 and Senate Bill 152. I fully expect the governor to veto this if it gets to his desk, because the governor came to Cleveland and he basically told us he prescribed these values for the Opportunity Corridor and these levels of inclusion. And Opportunity Corridor has been a model of inclusion, of local hiring, and how do you take a roadway project and make it much more? How do you take a roadway project and get people working? And how do you take a community and get it involved in this project? And the governor came and did this, and it should be a real eye-opening event when the Call and Post endorses John Kasich for governor. And they did it largely because of his work on the Opportunity Corridor. So he went through all this, and he's going to get House Bill 180, Senate Bill 152, and if he doesn't veto that, I will be shocked. So I'm assuming that we will be able to continue doing the work that we've been doing, working with the Greater Cleveland Partnership, working with the building construction, the Cleveland Building Construction Trades Council, and the city to really leverage all of these projects into more than just nice buildings and roads, but into jobs and an opportunity for people. So I'll stop talking because I've been talking for a long time. I want this to be an open discussion. If you do have any questions about things that are happening in the city, or if you have any questions for me, either things that have happened in the recent past or things that I hope to have happen in the future.
I want to ask about
Please.
the resurfacing program.
Yes.
So initially, when you rolled out the new way of choosing streets, you had said that would be a more equitable way of doing it because the city would be looking at the worst 10% streets, citywide, 5% streets citywide, and compiling a list, and then at least for this year, city council members have the opportunity to make some adjustments to their list or make recommendations for streets to be swapped out. The disparity in how much money each ward was allocated was vast, but based on the fact that the worst streets citywide were chosen. But then city council members had the chance to swap streets, which made it not about what was the worst, it was about then what council members wanted, but the disparity was still there.
No, I would disagree with that. As I stated in the many times that I've discussed this issue, is that this year's information is imperfect. And we're going off of a study that began in 2008 that was updated only by a windshield survey, like not a good, solid engineering survey. So the rules were this year going forward, this is kind of a transition year, is that you will get the list. And on this list, this will be based on this old study, updated the best we can, but with imperfect data. If you as a local council person, because that's what you do, you drive your streets, you know your community. If you know that there's a street that between 2008 and now has become much worse, then yes, that opportunity was there to swap that. That will, when we go forward, when we have, and that's why council recently authorized and passed legislation for a new pavement management study that is going to rate every roadway in the city of Cleveland. And then we will have good information to do that. So in terms of the equity, if one council ward had more than another, and but then the council person said, no, but this street is substantially worse, our engineering department went out, they didn't just say, okay, check. You know, they went out there with our engineering department, traffic engineers, and they looked at it and they rated it. It wasn't just this willy-nilly.
But there's still the disparity between one ward getting 600 and one getting 300.
Absolutely, and that's the way it should be, because people.
But that initial disparity was based on, as you said, an imperfect study from 2008.
Right. So short of completing a new pavement management study, which could not be done in 4 weeks. This is a 12-month process. It is the best data that we had, and it is the best process that we had to get at those worst streets. So of course, it's almost, if you're looking at this in terms of disparity, if you plotted the wards, put the map up on a wall, there are lots of wards. They're geographically different. There are wards that have there is not an equal number of streets in wards. So there has to be. It's not going to be perfect. There's different pavement ratings for those. Based on whether it's good or bad, how much has been invested in those streets for years past. I'm very confident. I'm very comfortable with the process that happened this year. I think that it worked the best it could with imperfect data. I don't feel that there's any inequity, and I don't think we strayed very far from the principle that the worst streets would be done first.
It's, safety, Matt Zone Safety Committee have introduced this legislation looking at racial profiling.
Yes.
Do you expect that that's got, your support and will pass through council fine without, a lot of pushback?
Of course, we're going to do our homework. We're going to look at it.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure that, Councilman Zone introduced that on the 8th. It's going to be heard in committee, and we're going to spend a lot of time on it. And we want to really make sure that ordinance, the only pushback that it might receive is that make sure that ordinance reflects the action items that are in the consent decree. We want to make sure that we're all marching to the same drummer on that. I believe it is. I've looked at it. I've looked at the consent. I'm familiar with both documents. I'm pretty confident that we're on the same page with this and we're going in the right direction. So I assume that will be passed.
Do you expect that there will be things that you will have to do or that council will do outside of what's dictated in the consent decree with regards to policing and community use of force? I mean, do you plan that City Council will be doing more than
Sure.
just what the decree lays down?
Absolutely, and actually Thursday, another issue that isn't part of the consent decree, is the issue of disparate sentencing, like disparate treatment after arrest. That's like another big problem with the justice system that has been brought up, and it's something that we're going to really dig into. And a lot of the training deals with with use of force, CIT training, first aid, those types of things. But just the just issues of more foot patrols, more community engagement, like we have the second district community relations team, making sure that all the districts have an active community relations component. So there's going to be a lot that's outside of the consent decree. The consent decree is a very good working document that we can work off of. But I think that the first step, the first answer to the question is we need to go beyond the police-citizen interaction and look at the broader justice system in terms of are people treated the same in the justice system as once they leave custody of the Cleveland Division of Police.
I was out at that shooting chase incident that happened yesterday on the west side, and there were some people who were pretty upset. And obviously the way the facts kind of turned out, according to the chief, was that it was not someone who had been shot and killed by the police, as people believe. But people were still pretty upset, and I'm wondering, what more do you think city leaders need to do to address, what I think is a lot of frustration on the part of some people in the community about the way they are interacting with police?
I think that we need to look at, when that happened, that wouldn't have happened. I don't believe that same response would have happened 3 years ago. I think because we're in this volatile time, it happened. I know that the chief is working hard. The chief went there himself. I think that we have to it's just going to be a constant outreach, a constant being open and listening to people and really hearing from the community. I don't have if I knew the answer, I would have done it by now. I think it's just a matter of just constantly both doing what we're doing, evaluating our process, and seeing how we can do it better. And I was as shocked as anybody who read that report or read the story when that happened. I don't know what could have been done to prevent it, because I don't know. I'm still learning about everything that happened on that day. But to the larger point of there are still people upset, there are still people angry, it's still volatile. Yes, we know, we get that. We are working daily to try to figure out what it's going to take to really reinstill confidence in the citizens in our division of police and just our community in general.
You mentioned that council will be doing things to help fund, the stuff that's in the consent decree. You mentioned you weren't sure where the money would even come from. The mayor talked about going to the private sector for a lot, for like training, equipment, non-personnel type stuff. Any thoughts on that? I mean, we're looking outside the box for funding for different things in council for.
I think that is a great approach. The mayor has begun that. At this point, council has not been involved in the actual outreach to the private sector. We absolutely support that approach, but at this point we haven't been on the delegation to make the ask, for lack of a better term. Yes.
You mentioned the drug addiction epidemic going on, and I know last year there was a big push towards trying to combat heroin addiction. We had the billboards up and everything. Is there any major program in place currently, or does each council member have something going on in their individual wards to try to help those with addiction?
Right now, it's the past year didn't represent any great improvement, and it's very sad to see. And it's not just heroin, of course, is very deadly, but focusing on the number of people that become addicted to prescription drugs, anything opiate based. What I believe we need to do is we really need to have a wider community involvement with the with the Addis board, with Bill Donahan, and really better access services, better reach out. But this is one that, again, if I wish I had a better answer, but this is just an epidemic right now. And we tried through public awareness. Our public health clinics are very involved in trying to combat this. But until we really stop the prescription drug abuse, also the access to it, it's just going to be a very difficult problem. It's going to be with us for a while. This is not something that we're going to solve by January. This is going to be challenging, but it's really, at this point, the best we can do is really work very closely, really seek advice from the Addis board in terms of what services are in the community. And we've done that, but we have not made the impact that I would have hoped we would have made by now. Sad to say.
You had said earlier, you were talking about the legislation that was passed last summer that gave the city authority to spend for the RNC preparations.
Yes.
And then you said, you looked at it recently and you're certain that there will be other legislative actions that need to happen. What are some of those things that you think?
I'm not going to, we have a July meeting coming up, and I've just kind of been, once somebody from your organization, Andrew Tobias, is covering this, and and I spent some time with it, and I've really poured over the ordinance and what was in it. I don't have any specifics right now. I've had very light conversations with the law department, but it's not, it's just to be clear, it's not as if some of the stuff in there needs to come back to us, or needs that every spend is going to need additional legislative authority. It's not, it's just making sure that it covers it's contemplate all the scenarios that may come up. So I'll have a better answer for you closer to July, but I don't have it right now.
I'm sorry. Why was council so comfortable? I mean, usually, councils really wants the administration to come back on every element of big projects,
sure.
But this was a huge.
This was huge, and it is huge. And if you look at what is good for cities, the Olympics are a disaster for a city. We've got to build the infrastructure. LA didn't do great on the World Cup. There's a lot of things that are not good for cities. Political conventions are great for cities, and for that reason, we needed to go into action. Now, sure, there was a bit of RNC euphoria. We're all really happy, but let me be very clear: the ordinance that was passed was a good ordinance. It was well thought through. It was, although quickly, and as I look back on it almost a year out, I'm still very comfortable with what happened. And to your specific question of why were we so comfortable, for this tremendous economic impact that the city's going to have, the real contribution we had was $2.5 million. Now, if we were to have not passed the larger ordinance, even when we apply for grants, like, a big part of the RNC is going to be applying for Homeland Security grants and those things that are reimbursable. If we had to apply and accept legislation for every grant that went out, and then expend legislation that was received, I don't think that would be prudent. Most of what is going to be funding the RNC is going to be raised through the private sector, and it's going to be reimbursed through Department of Homeland Security. So it didn't put at risk a tremendous amount of general fund money. It was really this ability to apply, accept, expend, mainly federal dollars, and that's like really the heart of the ordinance, and that's why quite frankly it was a good exercise for me to get this call from Andrew to really sit down and pour over this ordinance again, year out, and just see did we miss something? Was there something that council shouldn't have given authority? And a year out, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say what we did was the right thing to do then, and I think it's the right thing to do now. Is it a broader grant of authority than we usually do? Sure, but we're dealing with a lot of federal funds and a lot of small actions that have to happen to make this great opportunity for Cleveland be executed flawlessly, which it will be.
How good has the finals been for the city of Cleveland? Are you expecting to be getting economic windfall?
Yes. I don't know the exact number, and I can get it for you, but every playoff game is tremendous for the city, just in terms of admission tax and hotel bed tax. If you look, all the hotels are full, everybody's going to the game. But there's also an economic impact that I can't quite quantify in terms of what happens to restaurants, what happens to the workers at the do they get better tips? I can't really quantify that, but I'm quite certain that it's that there is a very big impact to the city. But the thing I can't quantify is the admission tax, hotel bed tax, and if you give me a call later, I will have that because I looked myself.
Not enough to make a dent in extra funds needed for the...
No, but it's still nice to have. But no, that's going to be a big challenge. But it's.
Can you? How do you to get to the residency and construction issue that the state legislature is looking at? What kind of levers do you have here in this situation? I mean, the people who are working on this in Columbus, I imagine, they don't necessarily have to listen to you.
No, they listen to
their constituents.
Yeah, we don't write them checks.
Yeah.
Our role in this is real simple. Is that if you look at what they're trying to legislate, like federal funds, like the state is like a pass-through for a lot of these dollars. So it's not like they earned it. It's not like it's their money that to have any authority over. And a lot of it is income tax that they've taken out of Cuyahoga County to go down to Columbus for them to redistribute. Our leverage is this. We've organized best we can to have the Greater Cleveland Partnership be against it, to have the council against it, the mayor's against it. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the county executive is against it. Don't quote me on that, but we had a conversation about that. I'm quite confident of that. It's a political thing at this point. You just have to look at the proponents and opponent testimony, and you kind of know where it's coming from. I understand that this originated as a shot against Akron, that was talking about a 50% local hiring requirement, which, quite frankly, there's no way you can get to that number. It's for the amount of construction and skilled trades. There's no way that you can get to 50%. But wherever it came from, I am very comfortable, I'm very confident that this is a local issue. That this is something that we can solve locally. And what I would ask all these legislators, if they would call me back or write me back, which hasn't happened yet, is somehow, even with these restrictions, people still bid on jobs. People are still wanting these. There's still contracts going out. There's still, people are lining up. They've got their subs. They make change orders. It can't be that bad. I mean, if it were that bad, I would think that we'd have a bid out and, nobody would respond. But that's absolutely not the case. People want these jobs, and the states, and I shouldn't. Yeah, I should, but I shouldn't bash state too bad, but I should. But I will give them like Opportunity Corridor is largely a state project. That's one that is a largely state project. But the others are, it starts at they're federal. It's passed through, and then where is the income from Columbus derived? They're not getting their money. They're from Licking County or from Hocking County. They're getting their money from the major urban centers, the economic centers, and Cleveland and Cuyahoga County are the major economic center of the state of Ohio. So thanks, but we got this one. We appreciate your care and concern, but really we're okay. It's.
One of the programs that you do that I love is your free computer program.
Yes.
Is there an update on that for this year?
Yes. Old Brooklyn Connected 2.0 is rolling out this year. Basically it's an aging system, and the stuff does age, especially when it's outdoors. But we are basically going to upgrade it. We want to get it to, right now, it's something that is a good, solid service. But like me, for example, I've got 5 kids. I try to use my daily service. I can't afford one day off. We had a storm the 29th of May, and some of the radios went down. my kids are out of school, but if they were in school, like that's the kind of thing, I don't have like a 2-day tolerance for repair, which is pretty good. 1 or 2 days, it's usually back up. But we want to bring it to network grade. So right now, it's kind of the first service for a lot of seniors and people that can't afford it. It's a secondary service to everybody else, with the exception of there's a number of businesses that have paid for the antenna that use it as their everyday, and there's a number of residents. I'm very proud of that program, and I'm looking for the upgrade. But I'll use that question to just jump on to another issue as we go forward, as we looking from now till the end of this term. Is what can we as a city, and what can we as a council really do to better access our broadband infrastructure, our fiber infrastructure. I think there's a lot of opportunities that are with us and a lot more that are coming. Under Euclid Avenue, as you know, the Euclid corridor, the health line, there is tremendous fiber. There's a tremendous opportunity. Council passed legislation, I forget the number and the date, to build off-ramps to some of the buildings along this way. And part of the opportunity corridor is a broadband component that will be under the opportunity corridor. There's also an initiative along the West 25th Street corridor, the Big Gig project that has been it was a partial grant awarded by one community, but it would bring a gig to all of the businesses along West 25th Street in an effort to lure those types of businesses that would use that kind of infrastructure, to West 25th Street. So I think that if we look at what should the city be focused on going forward, in addition to everything I said, in terms of an easy economic development answer is let's maximize what we have in terms of our fiber infrastructure, and let's look to the future. Let's look at opportunity corridor. Let's look at West 25th Street. What can we do to take that infrastructure, that broadband, and can we push it out in the neighborhoods? Can we make it so that it's for more than just businesses that might set up shop along those corridors? I think that we do have a very good infrastructure so far, and I think that going forward we have an opportunity to kind of bring it to another level.
You mentioned at the beginning, some of the efforts like benefits for same-sex couples who are working for the city. Mm-hmm. One thing that came up last year was and I don't know the correct term for it, the sort of gender-open bathrooms, transgender bathrooms legislation that kind of disappeared for a little bit after that. I'm wondering, is council going to hear that again? Is council going to give that another shot? I imagine a lot of council members maybe get calls about that. Yeah.
So what I learned about what we learned in this process. To me, it was getting the benefits passed was a priority of mine, and I wanted to make sure we got it done before we went into summer, because that to me has real. Let me scratch that because everything's real. That has significant financial impacts to people. When you look at, there was a farce called bankruptcy reform that happened in 2004, and you look at where the checks came from, and who funded that. But most people file for bankruptcy because of a medical condition, an unexpected medical condition, followed by unemployment and divorce. But the number one reason is that if you have a condition, it can wipe your family out. It can wipe, your savings will be gone. And it's not pleasant. It's not something that, when you talk about the health of a family, in addition to like just their health, I mean, the stress, the anxiety that causes to financially have nothing. So to me, that was something that we needed to deal with right away. We should have dealt with this a long time ago. The issue with the transgendered issue and the use of restrooms that came up, we had a council hearing. It's been introduced. The hearing was very well attended, and what I take from that is that we as the council, we as a city, we need to spend more time educating the public about the issue, educating ourselves about the issue. We need to have more conversations. We need to do more engagement at this point. So it's not that it just fell off. It's that we're in the process of just for those of you that were at the hearing, I think that was most of you. That was a lot of emotion, a lot of outpouring, a lot of feelings on both sides. So we're taking a step back, we're reassessing, we're just taking a look at what work do we need to do before we move forward with that.
Talks regarding the city of East Cleveland potentially being annexed by the city of Cleveland seem to be heating up again. Is that on council's radar? And if so, what is council's position on that?
It's absolutely on our radar. The process, right now, what I'm trying to do is be respectful of the people of East Cleveland, and I'm trying not to get involved in their politics, because the first step is they need a petition signed by I think it's 10% of those who voted for governor in the city of East Cleveland. And they need to present that petition to their council. And the way the law reads is that they shall present that to the council president of they say annexing city. I wouldn't use those terms as we move forward. It would be a merger, it would be a partnership, those kind of things. But the law calls it annexing city. I've told the mayor, Mayor Norton, that I would accept the petition. Now, what that means is that there's additional steps going forward. The council then would need to then you form a committee, and each municipality would appoint 3 people to this committee to do the due diligence and work through all of the issues that will be part of this very complicated procedure. And then when the agreement is made, I don't want to say annexing city, Cleveland would then have one of 2 options. One would be to have a vote of the citizens of the city of Cleveland, or there's also an option for Cleveland City Councilors to vote on it themselves. East Cleveland would absolutely have to take a vote of the citizens, and then if through those processes it becomes it's something that passes all of those tests and those votes and that level of approval, then we will move forward with a very complicated chore of merging these two cities. But that being said, they are still in that process of gathering signatures. I want to be respectful of the people of East Cleveland. I don't want to tell them what to do. I don't want to prescribe what they will do. But I do want to tell you, as I've told the mayor, that I would accept the petition if it is presented to me. And then then you get into all of the financial challenges that would go along with that. You get along with, you get onto some of the issues of, we've got our own abandoned houses, we've got our own roadways, we've got this, how are we going to make this work? And those conversations will all take place down the road. So that's where it's at right now, but it's certainly, that's a long answer to your question of whether it's on our radar.
On the issue of legislation that was introduced last year, the administration had come to council with the piece on outsourcing firefighter training, and that was introduced, but I don't think it was heard, was it? I don't think it's been up for hearing. Is that gonna come up for hearing, or
it is something council is we're going to do something with it. We're going to Councilman Zone's going to start the fact-finding process. The issue is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve for? How will this solve for it? I mean, these are all things that we need to get through. We are, I don't want to, we have to be able to do a lot of things, but the safety calendar has been pretty jam-packed with events surrounding the police actions, the consent decree, everything like that. But no, I am very aware of it. It is something that I'm in conversation with, and it will begin the hearing process. And I don't have an exact date for you, but it will begin that process.
I know that the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, they're finally going out now and doing their survey stuff. I mean, gosh, do you think the city is ever going to have enough resources to very quickly deal with this problem of abandoned houses? I mean, I know the county is kind of mustering up the money, but now it's doing it in chunks rather than all at once. It seems like a problem that no one has the resources to address quickly.
Yes. I would answer your question differently, except you said very quickly. There's a There's a will there. And one of the stories said that Cleveland wasn't contributing financially to this. We are going to contribute to that study. It is a great thing. It's going to basically, if you've ever seen what this process did in Detroit or Lorraine, it essentially creates a heat map of where distressed properties are. And we'll be able to use that to devote resources to really kind of strategize about how best to deal with it. We have a demolition problem right now. We have there is much more need than there are resources. Absolutely. The county is a resource at this point. The prosecutor's office has also come up with $2 million in funding, which is tremendous. But earlier this year, we funded a research study through the Thriving Communities Institute. And what it did was it provided the data to support the notion that demolitions and blight removal increased property values and lowered the foreclosure rate in those areas. And we're using that. We use that when we made presentations to the county, when we talked to the prosecutor, but we can also use it to go after, the Department of Treasury has some funds, and Councilman Brancatelli can rattle these off better than I can, but the long and short of it is there's federal funding, there's other state funding, and council's funding of the Thriving Community Study is going to be the basis for our going after that money. So there are funds out there. That is something that we have to just keep on working. I mean, there's no silver bullet. The $50 million to the county sounded like with a great opportunity. It still is. The process that was set up is less than ideal for a city like Cleveland, but we can work with it. We prefer that it be different, but we can work with it. The prosecutor's initiatives in the West 25th Street area, around Metro Hospital, around the clinic, UH, I think that's going to be good for us, and that'll be impactful because it's being targeted. I mean, the city we go through our list in terms of what's queued up, what's through legal review, and it's citywide. The prosecutor's initiative will be good because it will be impactful to those two neighborhoods.
The thing I'm always wondering with that, the abandoned house, just abandonment issues in general, is like, well, what's next after you deal with taking, because I mean, like, there are a lot of east side neighborhoods that are just losing people every year, probably every day. Well,
I think that there's a couple things. If you're looking for like the how do you best use it, I could give you some addresses of where people have done beautiful side yard expansions, and it's really improved the quality of life for those neighbors and the street. There are those that have just done a tremendous job. The what's next is, let's start looking at what kind of housing are people demanding. As much as I love my neighbor where I'm at, and I think everybody should live this way. A lot of people don't like a 3-bedroom, 1,100 square foot bungalow or colonial. Let's look at, maybe this is I look at this as a development opportunity. If post demo, once we remove the blight, that's what the end game is. That we use this for infill housing. That we use this to build new housing that more meets the demand that people are looking for. But the action of taking that house down is tremendous, and it really, when you see the blight, the deterioration, the broken windows, when it's gone, grass looks a whole lot nicer. A nice field. I mean, and that could be part of your side yard. It's tremendous. So demo is going to be the priority because it's something that we know how to do. We just need to find the resources, and then getting to that end game. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. You all know how to get in touch with me if you have anything else.